we thought this was going to be a treble winning team, and kind of it's almost irrelevant because had this team won the treble, it may have papered over some crack.
See if Neil Lennon had lost a cup final to a poor Aberdeen team, and the team at the end of it had Greg Taylor in midfield, he'd get absolutely slaughtered for it.
It's always, Rangers will make a mess of it, Rangers will make a mess of it. What if one day they don't? We can't rely on that as a football club.
Celtic fumble the treble. Why did it happen? What does it mean for Celtic? How does it shape things going forward this week on 20 Minute Tims? I'm your host Jamie, joined by Melly.
Yes.
And Stephen.
Raging.
You fuming, mate? You fuming? You're ready to tear this place down? Strip him with the captaincy. Sack the manager.
Yeah.
Never let that. I don't want to see Kashmir Schmeichel again. Glad we all got it out.
That'll about do us, I suppose.
I know.
Quick episode this week. It's a sore one. It's a sore one. It's a bad one for Celtic, to be honest. And quite frankly, there are many reasons for it that we can get into, over philosophising things and what it means for Celtic, and talk about the nature of seasons and how they're hard and they're challenging. But ultimately, this is a one-off game, a one-off very important game that everyone was hurtling towards in the belief that we're heading for this treble, not necessarily in the bag, but it was a game that was against a really poor Aberdeen team, statistically the worst team in the league over the last sort of 3 or 4 months, and Celtic lost it. They lost an important game to a bad team. That's the story, but it's a bad one.
Thank goodness someone said it, because I was casting my eye across the reaction on social media, as you do, Melly.
That was your first mistake.
I should have worn a welder's mask. The takes are roasting, and there's just been so much conversation. Celtic lost this because, or who cares if we lost a treble? We won a double. I grew up when we never won doubles. In 60s, we never won a treble for 20 years and 100 years and 50 years, and everything was good. Okay, cool. Let's just take it back a wee bit. Celtic lost a very winnable game in a Scottish Cup final against a rubbish Aberdeen side. Why did they lose it? Because we played rubbish on the day.
Yeah.
Why did we play rubbish? Because we've been pretty rubbish for months. That's really all that happened. That's the long and the short of it. Sure, the ramifications are we didn't get the treble. Yeah, as soon as you come out, you're a bit pissed off, you're bummed, but we all know that's the nature of football. We go again. But it's the way Stephen phrased it is exactly what happened. That's the long and the short of it. There was a game of football there to be won, and you blew it.
You blew it big time. You can, in this one, I'm going to put it at the player's door. I'll put it at the manager's door. I think it was just a really, really bad day at the office, and not the first we've had this season.
No.
Not the first we've had this year. In fact, Celtic have been poor in 2025, and why we've been doing this for 10 years, and it's why we bring up these things on a weekly basis and then get told in the comments, we're on course for a treble. We bring this up because it might mean we won't win a treble because we're not playing well, or so-and-so is not doing well, or it just doesn't seem like things are clicking, or Engels isn't quite hitting it, and then it comes to the point we don't win a treble. It didn't really matter, did it? It did. It mattered a lot to me.
Yeah.
It did. It was lost by duds. It mattered a lot to me. The Scottish Cup final was the last day of the season. If we had have won the Cup like we did last year in the last game, you forget about the League Cup, don't you? But this was the last game, on course for a treble, and Celtic blew it. And look, congratulations to Aberdeen.
Yeah.
Celtic didn't deserve to win it, but I don't even think Aberdeen played well on the day.
No.
So what does that say for Celtic? We barely created anything.
I think it's very honest of you, Melly, to admit you wanted to win the treble. I think we all wanted to win the treble. I think that much is pretty obvious. That's why I don't really... I'm not going to come on the podcast and go like, you win some, you lose some.
I was devastated.
When the final whistle went, that's crap, Celtic. I think that is how I felt, honestly. And in terms of the performance on the day, Stephen, I can honestly say, okay, just take the 10 years we've been doing the podcast, but I've been Celtic fans much longer than that. That's the worst Celtic performance in a cup final I've seen since we lost to Killie about a decade ago. It was terrible.
What was that, 2012?
Over a
13
decade
years
ago.
Jings, aye. But, no, it was really bad, the performance itself. And of course, I'm glad we're establishing this up front, because there's a lot of walking things back. As you said, like we can all pretend that it's hard to win trebles and all that sort of stuff, but everything this whole season was geared towards the treble. We kind of go walking this back because
we've been talking about the treble since January.
Yeah, 100%. And
as soon as the League Cup final was won.
And even when we were going through that bad run of form, we dared to call it a bit of a slump, and then Brendan Rodgers acknowledged that the spark had gone from the team a little bit. No one wanted to hear it, including us probably. We were just like, no, we're heading towards a treble here. All this stuff will be forgotten about. But now that we haven't won a treble, all those issues, I think, need revisited as to how we got here in the first place. So what happened was we were in a bit of bad form. Effectively, it now seems like as soon as we went out of Europe, the season was over. Everyone took the foot off the gas, and lo and behold, we weren't able to just magically turn it back on when it mattered. So the performance itself was woeful. Don't think we deserved to win the game in the slightest. And to me, it looks like we've kind of reaped what we've sown over the course of a number of months now. See, since January, again, we spoke about this at the time, since January, Celtic dropped 18 points in the league, the equivalent of 6 defeats from January to May. That's a lot. But again, nobody kind of wanted to hear it. It was all just, but
you say nobody wanted to hear it. I think that includes us.
Yeah,
I mean,
I said that.
I think more importantly, we would watch these things, we'd have a moan about them, but we'd placate ourselves. Thinking, do you know what? But we are steamrolling it. We're cruising towards a treble. That's the sort of things we were saying to ourselves. We were saying, we're cruising towards a treble. We had our live podcast on Friday. Thanks to everyone who turned up. Thanks to Chris Sutton who showed up as well. And he said, I worry a wee bit when you think you're cruising towards a title. You can cruising towards a title or cruising towards a final, you can take your eye off the ball a wee bit. And I think there is an element of that, because for all the bad performances Celtic have put in, and we have spoken about them on this podcast, Melly, we left every single podcast, we left every single game going, that was crap, but you know what? Probably going to get a treble at the end of the season. And I think Stephen's right to say, right, well, we were wrong, because we didn't get the treble. So now you get a chance to look back and go, right, well, where did this start to form? Was it just on the day? Was it a bad day at the office? Did we just no turn up? Was it uncharacteristically bad? Or is this a symptom of the way we've been playing? And I think it's only fair to say, we were crap on the day because we've been crap for weeks. This wasn't oh my God, I can't believe Aberdeen caught his nap in there. It was crap because we've been crap.
Yeah, and I sort of push back a wee bit on myself and Stephen were talking about it after the game. Like, Celtic didn't turn up, and I know what you mean then, but again, I have to bring it back, like I've said earlier this season. Celtic did turn up. And they've put in what they have put in big games domestically this season. The League Cup final, yes, we won it on penalties, but it was poor.
Celtic, we won as well. That Liam Scales incident was an absolute heist in that cup final.
Celtic let in 3 goals. They then went to Ibrox and shipped 3 goals. We went to Celtic Park and shipped 3 goals to Rangers again. We went to Ibrox with a chance to beat Rangers after becoming champions, didn't take it. And now we've got this game. And you're looking back across the season. Yes, we've absolutely scooshed the league. We've sat here and said how bad the rest of the teams are in the league. We've beaten a poor Rangers on penalties in the cup. And then if we had won that game at the weekend, we'd have beat Aberdeen in penalties. Celtic brought Brendan Rodgers back to win these games, to deliver his trophies, yet we're scraping by in cup finals to go into penalties in both of them. We Aberdeen last season, we beat in penalties as well. And then this season, we're getting beat by our main rivals in league games. And we're looking at these games going, there's red flags here, red flags here, red flags here. It's all right, but we'll win the treble, We're all ignoring those red flags, thinking it's all going to be okay. And then the big red flag at the end.
The dogs in the fire, but in this case, it's football red flags we're surrounded by. This is fine.
The big red flag at the end is the Aberdeen fans all cheering at us because they've won the cup, because Celtic put in the performances they have in the big games this season, domestically anyway. 2025 Celtic have been really, really poor in these big games, and it's the same patterns over and over again. Slow, getting to a certain point, going back the way. The groans from myself and everybody around me every time Liam Scales, Greg Taylor would turn back and play the ball, not driving on at players. That game was there for the taking, but Celtic thought they had it won at 1-0, and the players played a big part of that. So did the manager.
I think the players. I'm putting it down to, I think the manager and the players are equally to blame for how that panned out. And it's very difficult to separate this one game from the season. It's so difficult to look at this game in isolation, but I'm going to try my best, because we look at
the whole season.
We look at the whole season in terms of a treble, and we didn't get it, and it's all we've been talking about as Celtic fans. So I'll summarise towards the end. But when I'm looking at this game and I'm looking at the manager, I'm looking at the players, what I'm seeing from the players, honestly, is a lack of hunger and a lack of desire. And someone posted on Twitter a clip of Jock Stein talking about his Celtic team.
Right.
And I tried my best to find that again and I couldn't. But he was talking about watching his Celtic team. They lost a cup final to Partick Thistle. And he said
4-1, Skelt.
4-1, they lost. And he says they turned up expecting to win. They lost that hunger, and that's when I knew things had to change. And then I remember earlier on in the season, Brendan Rodgers talking about hunger. And I was trying to find that quote, and I realised it was on something we did for Patreon. Melly, you were at the Brendan Rodgers coaching convention.
Yeah.
Brendan Rodgers did a presentation there, and he said a wee bit about hunger. Can you just remind us what he said?
He was speaking about his time at Leicester. His presentation was all about sustaining success and how you need that hunger. And he said that Leicester, he's went there and they had hungry players, young hungry players. They thought, I can work with this squad. Then it got into the third season and it was going well. They'd just narrowly missed out in Champions League. But he said when he got to that fourth season, he said the hunger was gone. All those guys had got a bit older. They'd all signed long-term deals. We needed to bring in fresh players. We didn't have the money. And he said, I seen the team die in front of me and I knew it was going to be a difficult season. The money problems hit and they couldn't bring MD in and he couldn't refresh it. And they almost get relegated and he gets sacked that season. So he can see it coming, and you see that. Even when we watched Celtic at the weekend, they scored that goal. You scored a goal in a cup final and the celebrations were muted.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. So, and I think it was very deliberate. Brendan could have spoke about, I'm no psychoanalyzer, he could have spoke about anything at that conference, but obviously he chose to bring up the question of hunger and the question of sustaining success. So then I watched the Celtic team and I watched that celebration and I watched some of the play and the passing of the buck, and Celtic I think we were overconfident. And not overconfident in the way that we're passing it about and doing tricks. We're overconfident in the way that there's no attacking impetus, Stephen. It is back and forward round the side. And it's not because we're scared to play Aberdeen. It's because we think, do you know what? I'll get it to him. I'll get it back. Sooner or later, someone else will take responsibility for this win. Will pop up and beat this lot anyway. We don't need it. And that's the difficulty he got in. I think Brendan Rodgers maybe made the same mistake because starting on him, I thought even just the starting lineup was wrong. I thought James Forrest, who changed the game before, and who we've seen plenty of Kuhn now. I'm not going to go down the road of what I think of the guy, right? But we've seen plenty of him. If you're objective, James Forrest has been better than Kuhn the last couple of games. James Forrest changed the game against St Mirren. He should have started, and I think there was maybe one or two other debatable choices for starting up.
I think in James Forrest's specific case, I don't know if I'd be starting him in big games like that. Now, he is the guy on form, without a doubt, but for me, the use of him has been sensible, has been fairly spot on. Having him have big impacts later on in games. Now, that's not to say Kuhn is playing better than him, but if I've given my choice, if I can have 65 minutes of one and the rest for, and whatever, going into extra time, if that's a potential, I'd rather have James Forrest for the latter stages rather than... Is
that no lackadaisical though? Is that no the manager thinking, do you know what, I'll pick a guy who's not playing too well, we'll win anyway, and if I need to change it, I'll bring on James Forrest. If you're going, I'm eager for this, I want this game won, I want it won as brilliantly and as comprehensively as possible, you're picking all your best performers. In my view, I get what you're saying about using James Forrest sparingly, but we've seen Kuhn come off the bench to great effect as well. You don't just get to start games because you're the fittest. And maybe there might have been a question of fitness, I don't know, but I think Brendan Rodgers is he didn't take enough care in his team selection, and I think, and if we were to run that game again, I think James Forrest would start it, because Kuhn was rubbish in the game.
He was, I mean, one of many. I think it's like James Forrest. He started against Rangers quite recently though, didn't he? And didn't really have any kind of impact in the game. I don't know.
It's just my opinion.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, there's obviously a lot we can say about these games, and it's not going to change anything. Celtic lost again. To reiterate, they lost a game on penalties to a bad team, and there are many things that hopefully, or rather, could have been done differently, and that's possibly one of them. I don't particularly look back on that as being one of the defining factors. The subs, I think, were confusing.
Yes.
Certainly when we got to penalties and didn't have the two best takers in the squad in order to step up. So that was a confusing one, and it didn't have the desired impact on the game either. But yeah, before we move away from it, before I forget, we're talking about big games for Celtic. I think we give the team a lot of credit for being able to turn up when it matters, but you're right, the evidence of that is dwindling. It's going to come, I'd maybe, just off the top of my head, just as I've been thinking here, I'd maybe make the argument that Celtic have only won 2 proper high-stakes games this year in 2025, and those are, maybe people will be able to correct me, but Young Boys at home, which they had to win because we needed the Champions League.
Because we fumbled a previous
Zagreb,
game.
Of course. So needed that to get some Champions League progression, and Hibs at home in the Cup, because that was a big challenge. They were the on-form team. So those are the 2 proper high-stakes games that Celtic have won this year. And then all the stuff we've dismissed.
They turned up for Bayern. I want to put on the record.
That's true.
They definitely turned. They might not have won that Bayern game. That was an enormous ask.
Yes,
that was a terrific effort from the players in that game.
You're quite right. So in terms of wins, that doesn't take into the full context of what the Bayern Munich game represented. That's definitely right. But the rest of the time, it's been drop points in the league, losing to Rangers, which again people didn't really want to care about at the time because it doesn't matter because we're going to win the league. But this lack of challenge, this lack of urgency, this lack of it's not lack of effort, but the lack of urgency in these bigger games, and Rangers games are always going to be of the bigger fixtures that we play in. It's not good for the team because we've turned up to this cup final looking like blunted instruments because we've not really been sharpening the instruments over the course of these bigger games. And we've just turned up to that in no any particularly great form. Having no challenge has been absolutely no good for Celtic when it comes to the urgency and the desire to get these games won. Again, I don't think it's a lack of effort, but I think that playing almost half a season under no pressure in the league has taken its toll.
Is that the manager, Melly? Turning back to the manager, is it his job to get the players up for it? I mean, it's his job to get the team selection right. It's his job to get the substitutions right. It's his job to motivate the players. I take it you thought the team selection was okay to start. You didn't like the subs though.
Yeah, I thought like Stephen, would I rather Nicholas Kuhn coming on or James Forrest coming on? I'd probably rather James Forrest coming on. The team selection, Bernardo McCowan, you could probably flip a coin there, but there was just a lack of decent numbers on the bench. And what I mean by that is, I said it after the St Mirren game, like, why not have Mercado there? Because he's an option in midfield. We had to move Greg Taylor into midfield at St Mirren, and I never want to see that again. Yet Celtic going into a cup final into extra time with Greg Taylor in midfield again.
Sorry to jump in there. See, on the manager, you can bet your bottom dollar, right? Dollars to donuts, that see if Neil Lennon had lost a cup final to a poor Aberdeen team, and the team at the end of it had Greg Taylor in midfield, he'd get absolutely slaughtered for it. Absolutely slaughtered. So it's only right that we hit big time Brendan with this as well, because it is an absolutely baffling decision to have that. I know that the squad is thin,
and it's come out of nowhere, which to me is a bit of a red flag. That's an emergency. See, when you see a player crop up in a position
he's never played there.
He's never played there before. Okay, played it against St Mirren, but
and he drifts in there, but that's completely
Greg Taylor's
different.
been at the club for years and years and years, and we've only discovered they can play central midfield in the last fortnight. That to me is a bit of a red flag.
Greg Taylor drifts everywhere on the pitch. Like, we've talked about this a lot. The positions he takes up are quite often quite clever and innovative, and they throw the opposition off. But just because he'll pop up from in a inside left back position and drift into a sort of number 10 doesn't mean he can play number 10. It doesn't mean he can play midfield either.
The starting lineup fine, but the substitutions, like again with Brendan Rodgers, reason we were brought back, he'll win his trophies, these big games he'll get us over the line. That's not happening anymore. No. And the substitutions, watching the game unfold, first half wasn't great, but you thought, right, we're into half time, we've got the goal up, let's go and get this second goal. But like I said, there was groans around because Celtic kept turning back, and it was just crying out for, bring on James Forrest and get me clip those balls into Adam Idah. Adam Idah was poor first half, but in that second half I felt he was coming into it, was having more of an influence on the game. To then take him off, shuffle everything about, have Dyson Maeda through the middle, Yang come on to him, and Forrest.
This is the manager, we'll get to the players.
But Aberdeen were playing a back three, all big guys, they were sitting in there. Why are you bringing on the guy who can clip the ball the best into the box and then taking the guy off who'll get on the end of that? Idah was starting to have an influence in the game. As soon as he went off, their backline was brilliant. We will just head everything away, let them get out wide, and they're not going to do anything with it. The amount of balls Celtic had out wide, Aberdeen just camped in there, and then we'd end up going back the way instead of players driving. I cannot wait for Kieran Tierney to arrive, because I cannot watch Greg Taylor get to a position, stop and go back the way again. It was passive. And what was it you said about Brendan Rodgers and the Celtic team? Was it overconfident? I don't think it's overconfidence. I just don't think these players are as good as we think they are.
I think there's definitely an element of that, but that to me could also be overconfidence, because Brendan Rodgers is like, these players are brilliant. I think I'm honest, I put it down to a lack of hunger, and I think there's a lack of quality in the side. I think Brendan Rodgers, he can't be immune from the way the game turned out because he's the manager, and
He's the highest paid manager in the league
we
ever.
all like Brendan, but there is a question over how we've performed in these big games, and I just keep thinking about that thing he spoke about hunger, about the hunger going, and this team does look like it's a bit like a team at the end of its cycle, and you're looking at some of the quality on the pitch there, and I had worries about it, and I made a controversial statement. I says, we're talking about world-class basics. We're talking about trebles. We've got big talk. And I'm saying, I don't think the manager's been backed here. I don't think he's been backed properly. And the reason that was my initial thought after the game was watching the 11 that finished that match. It was appalling. And you can say, right, we can argue over the toss over whether or not the manager's been backed. To me, what that meant was he doesn't have a good enough squad to compete on all fronts. He might have a lot of money, but we've brought in a lot of money. He might have spent it, but we brought a lot of money in. We sold his star striker in January. We got rid of our left back, and we only got Jeffrey Schlupp on 4-month loan to fill the gap. It's not like we've got loads and loads and loads of quality players. And if you just rewind the clock back to what Ange was doing a couple of years ago, his bench was his starting 11 was way stronger. He had O'Reilly, Hatate, McGregor in midfield, Abada, Jota, Kyogo, Dyson, Starfelt, AJ, Juranovic at one point, Yakimakis on the bench, Aaron Moy. What he had options, because Brendan Rodgers is bringing on Johnny Kenny. No harm to Johnny Kenny. He's a very young player, and he's just started to make an impact, and he scored his penalty under pressure. He did well in the game. He's a young guy, and I'm sure he'll come on. But he's bringing on Johnny Kenny. He's bringing on Luke McCowan again, contributed, but he's not the quality that we lost. And when I look at what 11 finished that game compared to even just 2 years ago when Ange had his starting 11 or his finishing 11 going for his treble, night and day, man.
Yeah, we look at it, and Alistair Johnston plays, Greg Taylor plays, Carter Vickers, Starfelt. The guys that we've brought in are nowhere near Starfelt. We've got Matt O'Reilly. We've got nobody near him. Engels hasn't hit those heights. We get rid of Jota, and all the replacements for him, whether it be Kuhn, Palmer, Yang, Tillio, none of them have worked out so much, so we brought Jota back. Then up front, you had Kyogo or Giacomakis or Kyogo or Owen. We've got rid of Kyogo, so it's again with Celtic, like we've said over the years doing this podcast, chipping away. Starfelt goes, doesn't he get a good replacement? O'Reilly, guy comes in nowhere near him. Jota goes, Kyogo goes. If Celtic chip away again this summer, then we're going to be struggling. But what I will say on that, Jamie, while I do agree that looking at that team and going, where's the players, where's the guys to come on and change it, I don't think having a striker like we wished we had brought in January would have made much difference. Adam Ida, poor on the day. Maeda goes through the middle, poor. Had one chance that wasn't a work chance. Johnny Kenny, no chances. Kyogo's been poor this season.
How many chances did we create for Adam Ida, though? I think
no, that's my point here is if you put another striker in, like we've had with Ida all season, Kyogo all season, it's not the strikers who are not creating chances, it's not having chances created for them. Celtic's best chances were Greg Taylor flashed 2 over the bar and Jeffrey Schlupp hit the bar. We didn't have any real shots on target apart from that, so it's not the striker that's the problem. We're not creating chances. We get to a certain point, and instead of putting a ball into a dangerous area, we turn back. Aberdeen, that crosses into a dangerous area and they get a goal from it. We refuse to do that.
Let's talk about the Aberdeen goal, Stephen. I thought that was woeful from Kasper Schmeichel. Uncharacteristically bad for Kasper Schmeichel. The way he approached the ball, the best you can hope for in that situation is you're palming it out to the penalty spot anyway, which is what you don't want. He just needs to catch it. He says get his body behind it. We don't need to tell him he's been a very, very good goalkeeper for us. He is a very, very good goalkeeper. It was just an uncharacteristic error in the game.
To be honest, I can't really remember any majorly high-profile mistakes he's made all season. I really can't picture anything. I'm sure there'll be something, but I can't really call to mind any major mistakes he's made. And that just so happens that his first massively high-profile mistake is in an extremely important game for Celtic. So it's a bit of a shame that.
Did a Butland?
Yeah, he did do a Butland. Kasper spills it. That's exactly what we get for it.
What do you make of the rest of the team, though, the starting and finishing 11? You think what my comment was fair enough about the state of the squad? And
a distinction to be made there, because when you're talking about backing a manager, that word it's slightly incendiary in that people only think of money when it comes to that. People think of the total spend on a team and think, well, 20 million on these 3 players, 5 million on this and all that. So therefore he has been backed. So yes, I can see why people see that and think, well, obviously he's been backed. He spent all this money. But another way to look at that, and to be honest, a more sort of pertinent way of looking at that is, should a team of this level of resource have such a thin squad going into a cup final, and should they have these players who are demonstrably not good enough coming on in a cup final in order
only
to
two
change
players
it?
out injured.
Yeah, only 2 players injured. And look, I know that a lot of people will say that the players that Celtic are bringing on are better and more highly paid than the players Aberdeen can hope to bring on, but that's because Celtic pay them too much. That like Celtic are prone to giving out longer term contracts to players who I don't know, would Aberdeen really want Yang, for example? I can't really see it. I don't mean I don't mean to single him out, but what I mean is that just because they play for Celtic doesn't mean they're better than everybody else in the league. And my problem with the sort of idea of backing is that just because you spend a lot of money on 3 players means that you've just got the best players available in every single squad berth. I don't think we do have that. So I think
that's a feeling in itself.
Yeah,
isn't it?
yeah. So yeah, totally. I think look, there are players in there as well. Paulo Bernardo is, I think, a busted flush as well. His
loose pass.
Yeah. So yeah, Kasper Schmeichel. We've moved on from that, but Kasper Schmeichel was a shocker. I'm not going to blame anyone else for what he chose to do. I don't know. I can't even imagine what he's trying to do other than just sort of palm it out as you've already described. There's nowhere, nothing good could possibly have come from that, in my opinion. What he tried to do there, and in many ways, the worst thing that could possibly have happened did happen.
Yeah.
It just squeezed under him straight into the goal. But what led to that was Greg Taylor not shutting down the cross. He ended up stuck between a number of players out in that left side. Yang not really picking anyone up, and Greg Taylor ends up just sort of in no man's land. The cross comes in uncontested. Rewinding it back a bit, Paulo Bernardo gives it away in midfield for no reason. Aberdeen have offered nothing to this point. They don't need offered a way into the game in midfield when we are facing their own goal and all of a sudden all over the place. Paulo Bernardo gives it away. But that's 2 seasons of him now. 2 seasons and about 70 appearances for Paulo Bernardo. He's done absolutely nothing this season. And I know people keep pointing to, and I suppose we are sometimes guilty of doing the same thing, because we talk about Ida's big moments, and quite often they're from over a year ago. Paulo Bernardo's the same now. So Paulo Bernardo it just seems like a total nothing of a player. I was for bringing him back, but when we talk about chipping away the quality of the squad, this time last year, or not this time last year, but the last month or so of the season, 2 months, Tomoki Iwata was playing ahead of Paulo Bernardo. I don't think anyone thinks that the reason that this cup final wasn't won was because we should never let Iwata go. That's not my point.
Played in the cup final and won, didn't he?
Yeah,
played in
yeah.
Angie's treble.
So that's not my point. Is that we should have kept Iwata, but Iwata was a better player than Paulo Bernardo.
Iwata was coming on, and because he is a specialist player, he was coming on for a job.
Yeah,
we don't really have players that do that. We've got 5 number 8s that all interlink and interchange, but none really have specific jobs. If you're getting to 75 minutes, you're 1-0 up against Aberdeen. They've offered nothing, but you know what? Bring on Iwata, move McGregor forward, or bring on any other player that we've brought in there to do that. But that's down to the board, but it's also down to the manager. He's obviously not asked for that. He's let Iwata go and not brought somebody in.
This is exactly what I want to pick up on, because I don't think football transfers work like Football Manager. I don't think at the beginning of the season the board go to Brendan, here's an envelope with £20 million in it, go buy whoever you want. Brendan will go, look, I need a striker, I need a left back, I need this, this and this. So to say to Brendan, well, you spent 11 million on a midfielder and you spent 5 million, I don't care if you need another striker, your money's gone. I don't really think that's how it should work, especially when we've sold Matt O'Reilly for 25 million and Kyogo for 10 million, and who else did we sell? Jota in the summer as well?
Jota's a couple of years ago.
He was a year before.
But even that, sold him for 25 million, bought him back for about 9 or 10 or something.
So the point is, there's 80 million quid in the bank. There's plenty of money sloshing about. We shouldn't be looking down the back of the sofa for Johnny Kenny to come on and save a treble if that's what you want to win. That's my whole entire point.
Greg Taylor in midfield.
There's 80 million quid in the bank. It belongs on the pitch, and this is the outcome of it, and this is what happens. Yang is another one. Look, joking aside, and it's the end of the season, this is when you've seen everything you want to see, and you've saw the outcome of the fruit of everyone's labours.
Yeah.
Yang's not a very good footballer, as you put it on the post-match, Stephen. He's not a very good footballer, and he was, honestly, Melly, abysmal in the cup. Absolutely abysmal. Why is he on the pitch? Because James Forrest got injured, okay?
Yeah.
I appreciate...
No, he was on before that.
Oh, was he on before that?
It was Kenny that came on for Forrest.
There you go. He's on the pitch. Why is he on the pitch? Answer, because we've got nobody else.
Yeah, there was a point I said to Stephen after the game that Yang was meant to be in the right wing, and Brendan Rodgers, he has class at whistling, I will mention that a lot, but he has to whistle over to Yang.
Nobody can take that with you.
Yep, he has to whistle over to Yang, who's on the other side of the pitch, scream at him, and he's pointing furiously, get out to the touchline, because he's inside in basically a number 10 position. When Celtic get the ball, he's meant to be the out ball out there. If a guy's just going to go in there and vibe on whatever he wants and do what he wants, you're destroying the whole shape of the team, and you're not stretching Aberdeen, which is exactly what they want. They're playing a 3-5-2, so the space should be in between the wing back and the centre half. Yet you've got your right winger in a midfield where there's going to be a wing back and 3 central midfielders and 3 central defenders. Stretch the play, but he's just not got it in him. There was a point towards, I can't remember if it was the point towards the end of full time, where he gets the ball in the right wing and he just bangs this ball over the bar out for a by kick. That wasn't a hard low pass across, low cross to the back post where you're going to get Dyson Maeda or you're going to get the other winger coming in there. It wasn't a difficult pass, but he just doesn't have the composure or technique to do it.
There's a lot of cope flying about. I think we set the standard for the season, and the standard was a treble, and you didn't meet that standard. And I think it's absolutely fair enough if you're disappointed you didn't meet that standard. And I've heard people saying that.
Does it shine a light on us more?
I think it does, and I think what we've stumbled upon here is, well, maybe we need a wee bit more work in this team than we think we do, because
big time.
I think the notion that that'll be the impetus to go on and really capture the treble next season, that sounds like a really cool thing to say to make people feel better and get them off your back. We won the double last year and we didn't win the treble this year. It doesn't work like that. What it needs is proper work, and somebody needs to wrangle this football team, get the manager and give him exactly what he wants to succeed here, because that isn't it. That team for me isn't it. And I think now, having looked at it, you look through the squad, you're going, right, Bernardo, give or take him. Brendan will obviously want a striker. Brendan wants a winger. Taylor's going, okay, we're getting Tierney in, but we probably need a left back. We probably need a winger because Yang's not very good.
Central midfield.
We probably need a central midfield. We probably need a centre half. You think, we've kind of sleptwalked Stephen into a situation where you're looking at this team going, could probably use about 5 or 6 players. Spoiler alert. Our recruitment's awful.
Yep.
And Brendan likes expensive players, as we know, so we don't have the money for 5 or 6 Brendans. And you're like, hold on a minute, have we kind of... We thought this was going to be a treble winning team, and kind of it's almost irrelevant, because had this team won the treble, it may have papered over some cracks.
Oh, I think that's exactly what it did when if we'd won the treble, I think...
I'm not saying not winning the treble is a good thing, by the way. I'm just pointing out that the end result of this might be that we are shining a light on where the failures are. Maybe after a failure is the time, or it definitely is the time, not maybe, to examine where you are as a club and have a look at it.
I think historically we've seen that. I think it can be a good thing. Of course, it's not a good experience to miss out on winning something, but especially in a cup final, because I know like people will be screaming saying, but trebles are so hard. I know that, right? I know that trebles historically are very, very difficult to win, but the time to decide that is at the start of a season. See, at the start of the season, you look into a crystal ball and think like, well, trebles are very, very hard to win because one game could send you out. You could lose, drop one in the cup, and then that's over. But it doesn't come into play when you've got one game to go in the season. When you lose a cup final, it's not about looking back and thinking, well, trebles are really hard to do. So it's not the obsession with the treble, but again, we can't walk this back. We've been talking about this for months. Brendan Rodgers set it out.
I'm not letting a single person live it. Every single person that you spoke to, every Celtic fan, from New Year onwards, was saying we're going to a treble, we're winning the treble, Brendan needs to win a treble, historic world... I don't even know what it was, because it was an absolute nonsense, but it was like our world record 9th treble or whatever it was. That's all anyone spoke about. And then the minute it's over, not everyone, but, and I do kind of get it sometimes, but a lot of people going, well, can't he win the ball? Who cares? Hold on a minute. We care. We wanted this.
Well, look, the time for that will come. Like,
That's how I feel now. Incidentally, 2 days on, I'm like, what can you do? It was absolutely shite.
Yeah. But look, again, look, once you look back on it, winning a double is good. But again, I keep saying it, but you can't walk it back. You can't just erase the last few months and pretend we weren't aiming for the treble, because Brendan Rodgers publicly set it as the goal for the season.
Look at Callum McGregor.
Yeah.
The guy's devastated. He's absolutely devastated. And that is, for me, I feel bad saying it, but that's a great sign, because we're talking about hunger and we're talking about a lack of hunger. There's a guy that's got hunger, Melly. There's a guy who's lost the first cup final in his career at 30 odds, and he's on the pitch, inconsolable, feels like he's let his side down, let the team down, let the fans down. Callum McGregor will be in training first thing Monday morning. Knock, 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 Brendan's door. Right, how we make sure this never happens again? That's hunger. That's a winner. That's
Schmeichel as well. He'll be beside himself having made that mistake. I mean, that guy.
Tierney, it'll be like the Avengers. Tierney turns up first game of pre-season. Right, lads, the treble's on this year.
You listen to any word Kasper Schmeichel says in public, and it's pure business. It's all winning, winning, winning. That's all he talks about. Mental strength, attitude, everything. There's no way he's coming off that pitch thinking, it was really difficult.
I don't want to come across sounding like my dad here, but see if I was Brendan Rodgers, I'd look into the eyes of every Celtic player and see if you weren't gutted, see if you weren't devastated. Just go in the summer, because this is what we need. We need 11 players with that mentality in the squad, because it is. I'm convinced of it. It's a hunger thing.
Yeah, I agree with you there. But when you're mentioning those guys, Kasper Schmeichel, probably put Carter Vickers in there, McGregor, Tierney, who else?
Well, that's it. We need to go and buy them.
Yeah, and that's the problem, isn't it? Because you look around and goes, like, when push came to shove in that game, who was
AJ probably.
AJ, sorry, he'd be another one. So 5. Who's there to shove back? They're not. They're Bernardo again, decked on the pitch. Somebody bullied him off the ball. There was plenty of it. Yang just been brushed aside. You're looking at it at the end of the game and going, hold on a minute.
We'll probably have to replace Dyson in the summer as well. It looks like I am not convinced that we're going to see Dyson Maeda play another game for Celtic.
And that's the problem we have, isn't it? If Dyson Maeda and, say, Hatate go, it's probably about time they go. That's probably best for their careers. But that's 2 players we need to replace.
Yeah.
We've shown we're not very good at that. And we're getting to the end of this season, looking at that cup final, and I'm looking at it going, this isn't Brendan Rodgers' team. And there's a lot of people to blame for that. There's probably himself. There's guys that he's not played. And there's recruitment as well. You're looking at it and going, our best players are still the Ange players, and we've lost a lot of them well.
How many players did we sign in Brendan's first window? And they're all scattered to the wind. They're all out on loan places.
9 or something, probably.
And
most of them, anyway.
Just on that as well, I'm looking at this 4 transfer windows. It looks nothing like his team. It just looks like a patchwork of, I've got a few players of my own and all that, but I just don't know if we're ever going to get a Brendan Rodgers team now. I think it's gone, and to be honest, I don't think it's going to happen. And this is why we bring this up. This is why I try and learn from what we've happened in the past. Celtic are sort of hurtling towards the perfect storm here. Not been good this year.
I think we're sleepwalking into the perfect storm a wee bit. I think
again, the manager's contract situation, say Dyson goes, then another player goes, we don't recruit properly. See if we get to the start of the season, Jota's still out long term, Champions League, we don't get into that. Then the first game's at Ibrox, and then you're looking at, I've seen this movie before, and all it takes is Celtic to get it wrong again, because it's not wrong once, because we've been getting it wrong a lot in the transfer window, and then Rangers to get it right once, and it can turn like that, because
people
the rest
are
of the league
reluctant
is
to hear
poor.
that. I get that. I mean, you
But this is the problem, innit?
Yeah.
It's always, Rangers will make a mess of it, Rangers will make a mess of it. What if one day they don't? We can't rely on that as a football club.
I think best worst case scenario here, Stephen, is we've slept into what might end up looking like another rebuild in the summer. But I think Melly makes a great point that everyone wanted to win this treble, but we wanted Brendan Rodgers to get his treble, because that's the benchmark now. That's not the benchmark of a good season. It's the benchmark of an excellent season.
Yeah,
every Celtic manager's come in here since Brendan Rodgers, more or less, and got their treble. Even Neil Lennon got it in the COVID times. He managed to get the treble. Ange got his treble. Everyone, and that's kind of the vibe this season. And even Callum McGregor, just reversing back to him, he had a really good shot a realistic opportunity of never losing a cup final in his entire career.
That was probably the one game he shouldn't have lost out of
Yeah.
them all. There's other ones that have went closer than that, but that was a winnable game against a team that offered nothing until a cross into the box, and then the game turned because Celtic didn't see it out, and they weren't ruthless, they weren't clinical. How many times have we said that this season, where it's attacking or defending? Because all it takes is your team to break on Celtic once and you'll get an opportunity.
Well, look, losing a treble, there are many ways to lose a treble. As I said earlier, you could go out the cup in the first round or whatever it is. Remember, last season went out to Kilmarnock very early on, and then the treble's gone. So it's not like this massive disaster to not win a treble. And these days, there seems to be a bit of an obsession with calling everyone entitled for wanting to win things. I find it bizarre, really. It seems to have just been made up online because we don't get to do that. We don't get to all be on this journey together and saying treble, treble, treble. Oh, you wanted to win a treble, did you? Oh, that's a bit entitled. Oh, you can't handle it, can you? Oh, look at you, man. It's utterly bizarre.
I just want to say, just while you're there, right, that the Twitter discourse across the last weekend has been wild, right? I'm not going to call anybody out. I'm not even, if you're all, everybody's entitled to your opinion. It's carries no stronger weight than ours. But one thing I will say is, see the comments you see on Twitter bear absolutely no relation to the conversations I'm having with my friends, guys you're watching the football with, people in group chats, on our Discord.
At the stadium.
It's a different planet. It's a complete, they bear no relation. See this? I'm not going to quote anybody, but it's just a completely different planet.
Performative garbage by faceless NPC cowards online. That's exactly what it is. Again, I don't mean cowards as if, like, oh, you're not showing your face. I mean cowards as if, like, pretending you didn't want to win a treble. It doesn't matter. No, it's a way to get you out of a slagging by the Sevco fans online. It's not a performance. But anyway, so the nature of the treble, what we're talking about is really Celtic badly lost a winnable game to Aberdeen, and that's what's killed it. Again, that's really what it boils down to. A bad performance, which realistically, looking back now, we should have been able to see coming because we saw it, we spoke about it at the time, and we all ignored it because we're heading towards a treble. We ignored the bad performances, we ignored the sluggish performances, we ignored the alarming dropping of points that, see if there was any challenge in the league, the amount of points, now I get that if there was any challenge in the league, those results might not have happened. But what I'm saying is that had there been a challenge, we'd be looking at chucking the league form. If you're dropping 14 points from January to April, that's alarming for any Celtic season. So we ignored all this stuff at the time because we were going to have an extraordinary season, which was going to result in the treble. That it's not, what we're not saying is that the treble is the absolute bog standard. What we're saying is that we were heading towards an extraordinary season, didn't do it, and now what we're left with is this season better than last now?
No chance.
No, it's not, because what we've done is we've swapped the League Cup for the Scottish Cup, or rather the other way around. Failed to beat Rangers for ages now. Failed to beat Rangers.
Didn't get beat by them last season.
Yeah, and I don't care what anyone says. That is part of the Celtic experience is going toe-to-toe and hopefully beating your rivals. Not done that for ages. Did well in Europe, yes. Finished 21st in the Champions League, and I don't mean to say that kind of snarkily as if it's not a big achievement. We went toe-to-toe with Bayern Munich, and I enjoyed that at the time. But really, what we're left with, if we didn't achieve the treble, which would have made it extra special, what we're dealing with is a good season, ordinary season.
It's like your mum's picked you up for school and she went, "Who wants pizza?" And everyone goes, "We want pizza." And you think you're getting a Domino's. You get home and she pulls a Chicago Town out the freezer. It's still pizza. It's still good dinner. But it's not Domino's.
Yes.
It's a Chicago Town. That's what we're dealing with.
This week is brought to you by Chicago Town Pizzas.
No, it's probably brought to you by Domino's because we gave Chicago Town a slagging.
Right, where was it? Yeah, so it's not the end of the world, of course, but what we are now dealing with is the disappointing altering of the perception of this season now, which could have been so much better, but one key failure has killed it off. So it's not a disaster, but I think we're right to sort of acknowledge this and put it away and move on to next season because it's all we can do as fans. But I think going from January to May in the belief that we were going to win a treble, not that we were divine right to win it. None of that stuff. But that's what we're focusing on. We're all on this ride together, and we're all heading for a treble. Let's see if we can do it. And for it to fall at the last hurdle in penalties is a disappointment. I think it's all right to talk about that and move on.
We are we're going to move on, and we've got turns out big summer ahead. Lots of signings to be made. Lots of players coming and go. I think as we sat here just now, we didn't see us fumbling a treble. I think as we sit here just now, I think there's going to be more exits from Celtic this summer than we maybe expect, or maybe we're anticipating as we sit here. But all the players who are here and contributed this season are going to get graded next week. The infamous 20 Minute Tim's end of season report card is what's next for the flagship. That's for this week. That's for next week. Thank you so much to everyone who joined us, by the way, on Friday on the live show. We had an absolutely tremendous laugh. Great. Everyone had a good laugh. And thank you to everyone who continues to support us on Patreon. Patreon.com/20minutetims. You can do that there. But we will see you next week for the report card.